Alrighty, it looks like we have everyone.
Great.
So we can go ahead and get started. Maribel, if you want to take it away and introduce everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Maribel Marin. I am the Executive Director of 211, and we're so happy that you joined us today. We're going to be talking about reporting hate through the 211 hotline, and also some of our partners are here today to talk about additional services that are available for certain types of situations. So I'm going to get started. And first of all, I want to make sure that everybody can hear and see. And if you have any questions, please use the chat. And we have people who will be looking and able to help you if you have any issues. But let me start off first with introducing the 211 hotline team, starting with Tanea Robinson, who's the program manager of LA versus Hate at 211. You see her waving there. And then we also have Irma Serrano, who's the performance coach for this program. There you go. And then Sophie Cuevas, who's the anti-hate care coordinator at 211. Also joining us today is Rick Eng. He's the program manager at SSG for the LA versus Hate program, Special Services for Groups, is a nonprofit organization that is heading up the network of partners who are working with the program. And so when our care coordinators are working with the client, they often reach out to one of our partners, and Rick Eng is kind of the lead person that manages the network. So and he can talk to you more, and he will be talking to you more about all the different kinds of partners that we have in the program. And then also we have Patrice O'Neill, who is the CEO of the working group, but also the leader of Not in Our Town, which is a movement of people across the country working to build safe, inclusive communities for all. So today our purpose is to help inform you how to use the reporting hotline, how to make reports, when to make reports, and also what you can expect if you make a report and you need additional assistance. I think that you will be very encouraged to know that it's not only reporting, but there's also assistance. And you're going to learn all about that today. We are hoping that you can help spread the word, make sure that people know that this is an option, because what we're trying to do is really create a community effort across the county to combat hate and to show anyone who is a victim of hate that there is a group, a network that is here to help you, and that you know, that you can rely on for assistance. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have Tanea Robinson go into the program. And again, if you have any questions, please use the chat, but we also have some time after the presentation to talk if there's other issues that come up.
Thank you, Maribel. So my name is Tanea Robinson, and I am the program manager at 211 for the LA versus Hate campaign. And just to start off, here are some key terms to be aware of. Protected class, and in this case, we're speaking of race, ethnicity, origin, gender, disability, sexual orientation, and religion. LA County Human Relations Commission, and Care Coordination, Care Coordinator. Thanks, Rena.
Next slide. My name is Sophie. I'm one of the 2 care coordinators 211 LA County has. I'm going to talk briefly about what is the difference between a hate crime and a hate incident. The next slide, please. So in hate crimes, there's charges filed when there is evidence that involves a bias, hatred, a prejudice based on the victim's real or perceived race, ethnicity, religion, ancestry, national origin, or disability, gender, or sexual orientation. Generally, what we're looking for is that it involves possible damages to property or some type of physical assault, some type of vandalism to a house of worship, religious building, which would warrant an investigation of a hate crime. A hate incident, on the other hand, is a non-criminal act that involves a bias, hatred, or a prejudice based on the victim's real or perceived race, ethnicity, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, gender, or sexual orientation. So a lot of that, we get a lot of it being race related. People are being referred to as illegal Mexicans, go back to your country type of situation, or in sexual orientations, they use the derogatory name calling. And one of the popular words is, and pardon me, it's faggot. One of the most recent incidents that we had was very advertised. Came out in the news. It was a sign hanging on the 405 freeway. It says, honk if you know the Jews want a race war. That actually came through our 211 call line and was reported to us. Somebody wanted that sign taken down off the 405 freeway. Next slide, please. So with that, some of the examples of hate incidents include derogatory name calling, cross burning, hate mail. So those are different variations of situations of some examples of where we're going to take hate incidents. And in the name calling, we're talking about really vulgar things that people say to other individuals. Sometimes they're referred to as, and I'm going to use some of these words so you get familiar, wetbacks, the N-word, illegal Mexicans, I'm going to call ICE. In one of our cases, it said they belong in the kitchen. They don't belong in this country. We had a lot of Asian backlash with the coronavirus. A female was threatened. It says you're all going to die. So again, those types of situations are occurring. We have had 2 cases of hate mail incidents. In one situation, it was a homeowners association. The president of a homeowners association received an unmarked envelope stating, warning people not to offer rent or rent the units out to gay men because they were spreading COVID-19. So next slide, please.
So hi, I'm Irma and I'm the performance coach. Thank you for joining us. So what's the difference between reporting to 211 rather than law enforcement? Reporting with 211 will allow us to collect information if the client is willing to provide consent, so that we can share that information with the Los Angeles County Human Relations Commission. It will help us also identify those areas that need more resources in relation to the hate incidents.
What are the different types of harassment? Next slide, please. So some of the different types of harassment are bomb threat, burglary, robbery, discriminatory treatment, graffiti and vandalism, threat of violence, assault, and battery. A couple more types that we see are derogatory names, hate mail, and even display of swastikas. Next slide, please.
So what defines bullying? Bullying is an act of verbal or physical aggression with an imbalance of power between perpetrator and a targeted student that is repeated or has the potential of being repeated again and again. And so the next slide, please. And so some of the examples of bullying that you're going to hear of are going to be kicking, hurting, punching, slapping, tripping, shoving. If you could, yes, thank you. Some of the examples are going to be cyberbullying that can occur via social media is one of the hot buttons right now because a lot of the kids are not in school. They're using Facebook, TikToks, Instagram, Snapchat, texting, and the harassment is pretty serious. And so some of the warning signs that we're looking for as care coordinators is when we're collecting the data from the parents is the child being isolated, refusing to eat, sleeping for long hours, not feeling well, or trying to avoid going to school. When school was in session, the younger children use that one quite a bit. And it's sad to hear, but we do get reports for kids in kindergarten, and it's K through 12, and it does happen. Cyberbullying is the biggest, is the most thing, is what's on the rise, I should say. And it's anything from just people trying to fit in, kids trying to stay socially connected, but it does get out of hand, and it can trigger, you know, people being mean on the internet. Next slide, please.
So a common question that we receive is if a report is completed with 211, is the information going to be shared with anyone? So we do not share information to law enforcement, but when completing a report, if consent is provided, we do share information with the LA County Human Relations Commission, who can assist in identifying areas in need of resources such as education and crime prevention. Also, when consent provided, we may share information regarding possible resources and referrals. Next slide.
So would I be able to complete a report if I am targeted based on immigration status? Yes, immigration status is also a protected class. We can definitely help you with filling out the report, provide you that assistance with care coordination if you so choose, but we can definitely take a report.
And the next slide is, would you be able to report a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute? It is reportable when it's related to one of the protected classes: disability, gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, national origin, or immigration status. And we did have a case involving a situation with a young man that the landlord found out that he was gay and HIV positive, and it all went awry. The tenants and the manager then started the harassment of this individual to the point where, you know, he needed some services such as counseling, needed to be connected with an organization that would help him relocate. He was able to successfully, after a couple of months, get relocated out of the situation. And that's all because they found out he was gay and HIV positive. Next slide, please.
So can I report being called a derogatory name? Yes, as long as it's motivated towards one of the protected classes like race, ethnicity, or gender, sexual orientation, disability, or religion, we can definitely take a report and offer if any slurs or degrading language being used targeting one of those protected classes. So what should I do if I am discriminatorily treated in public? 211 offers two options, or several options for you. You can go on our website and fill out the report for a hate incident directly. You can do it at your own leisure. You can do it if you don't feel comfortable speaking to someone. You can go ahead and utilize that tool that's available for you. We also have our community resource advisors. You can call 211. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can have that human connection. You can explain to somebody what happened. They'll be able to offer you resources that are targeted towards the situation that occurred. And if you wish, offer you care coordination as well, so they can do follow-up with you. So we can definitely offer those options for you, yes.
And along with that being said, with this filing at online, generally the consumers don't realize that they can operate our system or are unfamiliar and don't choose the referrals. So our goal as care coordinators is to definitely connect as soon as possible with these consumers to ensure they're being connected to the appropriate referrals agencies or services or programs that would help them during their time of the situation of the crisis or the hate crime or incident that occurred.
Will I be able to complete a report if I experience an incident based on my sexual orientation or religion? Yes. Sexual orientation and religion are both protected classes. So examples of reporting against sexual orientation will be being referred to using derogatory names or gestures, receiving hate mail, or even vandalism. And some examples of reporting against religion being targeted based on your religion, saying derogatory or offensive remarks regarding an individual religion, graffiti, display of a swastika. If care coordination is consented, additional resources and support and follow-up can be provided. Next slide. So can I report an incident if I was a witness to a hate incident? So yes, incidents can be reported by a victim, by a witness, or even by a victim advocate. If you are reporting as a witness, you might want to note the following things. Where did the incident happen? The location of the incident. The perpetrators, how many perpetrators were there? The victims, how many victims were there? If you've observed any motivation in the incident, and the description of the incident. Next slide.
So what can I expect if I report an incident to 211 Los Angeles County? You can expect several things. We can assist you with providing you with referrals specifically to the situation that occurred. You can expect to receive follow-up assistance if you so choose from a care coordinator to offer you that assistance. And if need be, we can also help you with advocating to ensure that you receive that needed assistance from the referrals that were provided, or perhaps additional referrals. Am I able to make a report anonymously? Now you are able to make a report anonymously, both via 211 and via the website.
Is someone under the age of 18 allowed to report? So the answer is yes. A minor can make a report, calling 211 or visiting our website, but parental consent will need to be provided for additional care coordination and follow-up. So referrals will still be provided to the minor, but we won't be able to provide the care coordination without parental consent. Next slide, please.
Some of you are going to wonder what's the value of care coordination in addition to reporting. Our goal is to ensure that we hear what the victims are going through, the witnesses or the advocates are feeling, and find the programs and services that are going to be applicable to help them get through the trauma or the experience that they just had. Anything from advocating through victims of crime, connecting them with counseling services, explaining how the bullying hotlines work, being able to file a police report with the Unified School District if need be because of whatever happened when school was in session. We did have to do that a few times. Connecting with legal aid, Housing Rights Center when it's neighbor-to-neighbor disputes, mediation, those types of things. And our goal is to explain how to use these applicable referrals to help them get through the process of what it is that came through on this report. So if someone doesn't speak English, how can they make a report? So when you call our 211 IVR, our option for English is 4, our Spanish option is 5, and number 6 is our other languages. When we utilize the other languages line, it'll prompt you to tell them what language you need. And we've taken 2 reports in Armenian and 1 in Mandarin. And so we use the language line translator to help us. This is a 3-way conversation, so there is a third party involved in this information. And so we do ask for the consent that they realize we have to communicate via a third person on this conversation. So again, they can either do it online right now, English and Spanish only. Other languages will be coming forward, additional services in the future.
Is discrimination due to COVID-19 considered a hate incident? Yes. We are recently receiving, backlash against a specific race because of COVID-19. Some examples of that are, individuals making reference to persons of a specific race being carriers of the COVID-19 virus, or being the individuals that started and spread the COVID-19 virus. So we can definitely take those hate reports and hate incidents.
Can I make a report if I've received hate mail? So the answer is yes, if the motivation is targeted by a protected class. So examples of hate mail can be letters, photos, text messages, or via social media. Next slide, please. So a special thanks to our funders, the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, and the Human Relations Commission. So this is my information. Once again, I'm Tanea Robinson. I'm the program manager of the LA versus Hate campaign. Here's my contact information, my telephone number, and my email. Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize, I was on mute. Thanks, Tanea and Sophia and Irma, that was great. A lot of good detail on the process. So my name is Rick Eng, and first I'd like to thank 211LA, Maribel, for giving me the opportunity to speak about our rapid response provider network of the LA versus Hate program. So my name is Rick Eng, and I'm the program manager for this network, which is a major anti-hate initiative from the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations. So I joined SSG, the Special Service for Groups, in mid-June of this year. And my background has been working with both private and nonprofit sectors in communications. In the nonprofit world, I've been in the areas of civil rights advocacy and youth leadership development. So prior to joining SSG, I was an interim executive director for the Greater Los Angeles chapter of OCA, Asian American Pacific Islander Advocates. So I'm going to give you sort of an overview of SSG as a coordinating entity managing the network. So next slide, please. So who is SSG? So the catalyst for the founding of the Special Service for Groups, which happened 68 years ago, were actually the Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles. You know, they were violent clashes that sparked racial tensions between the establishment and the Latino and minority communities during World War II. American sailors had attacked Mexican-American youth on the streets of Los Angeles, causing a national outrage. So to address this issue, an organization called Community Chest, which is now better known as the United Way, formed a special service unit to attend to the youth's recreational and social needs. So by 1952, after 8 years of operating programs for teens, the Special Service Group incorporated. So SSG's first year offered outreach services to many minority gangs in Los Angeles, operating the most intensive gang counseling program that was in the United States at the time. Sorry, I lost my place here. Next slide, please. So how did SSG become involved as a coordinating entity for LA versus Hate? So there was an initiative that was approved and passed by a motion of the LA County Board of Supervisors in July of 2017. And then later in that year, in October, a second LA County Board motion requested that a contractor be identified to provide the community capacity building and response to hate service and support, utilizing a network of subcontractor community partner agencies. So the selected contractor was Special Service for Groups, Inc. We have been developing a network of both subcontract paid and volunteer public/private providers as entities to facilitate the building of the community capacity to both prevent and respond to hate. This is a vital component of our anti-hate initiative of LA County. Next slide, please. So the LA versus Hate response provider network is currently made up of 8 subcontract partners, with one being a coalition of 4, giving us a total of 12. The members of the networks are nonprofit organizations and agencies with solid reputations and records of service to the community through programs and activities addressing stressed, marginalized, and underserved populations. The network partners themselves can provide assistance and support to victims of hate acts, including hate crimes, hate incidents, and bullying. So let me introduce to you those of our subcontract partners. Next slide, please. So founded in 1913, the Anti-Defamation League has been a leading anti-hate organization, mainly addressing anti-Semitism and bigotry and working towards securing justice and fair treatment for all. So the ADL Los Angeles chapter is the network partner. Lately, the chapter has been focused on addressing voter suppression and potential election day divisiveness in the polls. ADL also has an online hate incident reporting form on its website. Established in 2004, Antelope Valley Partners in Health aims to promote health and wellness for adults, children, and seniors in the northern reaches of the Los Angeles County. AVPH partners with various organization groups and businesses to create a community collaborative, potentially serving a population of what is 475,000 in a concentrated area that's 2,200 square miles. Some of these programs include Best Start Lancaster, Best Start Palmdale, and YOLO Lancaster Challenge. Next slide, please. The Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, or APCOM, is a coalition of community-based organizations that advocate for the rights and needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander American community. It had begun as Pacific Asians Coming Together, or PACT, in 1975, eventually evolving to APCOM in 1996. APCOM helped launched earlier a Stop AAPI Hate Reporting Center in response to the alarming escalation in xenophobia and bigotry resulting from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. So the center collects a lot and tracks incidents of anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander hate violence, adult harassment, discrimination, shunning, and child bullying in California and throughout the country. Established in 1986, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles has been advocates for protecting and defending rights of Latinos and immigrant communities. CHIRLA provides legal services and a helpline for victims of discrimination. Among many of their advocacy efforts have been on behalf of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, recipients, and fighting illegal barriers to citizenship and legal residency in the United States. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier, this is the unique sort of coalition that comes under the heading of Hate Violence Prevention Partnership of LA. And the four organizations, they are a longtime advocate and service groups that have addressed the needs in major population groups that have been the most targeted of hate crimes. And they are Bienestar, founded in 1989, Brotherhood Crusade, incorporated in 1968, the California Conference for Equality and Justice, originally founded in 1927, and the Muslim Public Affairs Council, established in 1988. So the canopy of Hate Violence Prevention Partnership was formed with the goal of really bringing together these organizations to create a unified voice in bridging their partners' identities to help a much larger scale effort to eliminate hate violence. Next slide, please. So the speaker who will succeed me represents this organization, Not in Our Town. It is an Oakland-based nonprofit founded in 1988. It was launched in the Not in Our Town initiative of the working group was launched in 1995 with a landmark PBS film that documented the heroic efforts of the citizens of Billings, Montana, who stood up to their neighbors after a series of hate crimes. You're going to hear more about Not in Our Town from its founder, executive producer, and filmmaker, Patrice O'Neill. So servicing Northeast San Fernando Valley, the San Fernando Community Health Center provides high quality, state-of-the-art healthcare services, as well as prevention and education services. Its ethos is providing these services in a supportive atmosphere to every person, particularly the most vulnerable in the San Fernando Valley, regardless of religion, race, age, sex, or personal income. Next slide. So finally, we have the Western Justice Center. It was founded in 1987 by a group of judges, lawyers, and civic leaders that sought innovative ways to handle conflict using alternative dispute resolution techniques in and beyond the court system. So their aim was for the Western Justice Center to serve as a thought leader, convener, and capacity builder in the field of conflict resolution education. So now what they're involved in is actually creating programs to empower the youth to become the agents of change in their communities. So next, what I want to do is I want to give you a brief update of some higher profile cases of hate acts that has involved my organization and our partners. Here we have, you must have heard of Lena Hernandez, the retired social worker living in Long Beach. The first incident that was recorded involving Ms. Hernandez was at the Del Amo Mall in October 2019, when Casey Salminao came to the aid of a mall employee being berated by Ms. Hernandez, who then knocked Casey to the ground and was repeatedly punching her. Casey recorded the incident with her phone camera and also filed a police report. Nothing happened until 8 months later this year on June 10th over at Wilson Park, also in Torrance. Ms. Hernandez was there spewing anti-Asian sentiments to 3 people, one including a gentleman and his 11-year-old son. So when we sort of got involved, there was growing media coverage and public concerns mounting. So the Torrance City Attorney's Office finally charged her with one count of battery for the attack on Casey at the mall, but did not file charges for the June 10th incidents due to lack of evidence. So actually this coming Monday, the arraignment for Ms. Hernandez will take place. APCOM, the Asian Pacific American Policy and Planning Council, was the partner that was involved in dialoguing with the 3 adult victims. Next, please. So on Monday afternoon, August 17th, Hong Lee, a social worker for a nonprofit, was at a popular Mexican eatery in the Pico Union area of LA. A gentleman approached her, starting a conversation, and asked her to lunch, but Ms. Lee declined because she was married. The man's mood changed and from pleasant to menacing, and he unleashed anti-Asian tirade towards her. She began filming with her mobile phone and asked for assistance from the restaurant employees. He continued to berate her until he finally left. Shocked, I was able to talk to Ms. Lee shortly after, and she kind of told me that she, in her job, is used to seeing this kind of behavior, but she was so caught off guard because it's never happened to her. She's only been a witness. And so she was feeling scared and vulnerable. But then later on, there was a complete transformation, because when she posted her video on Instagram, she was receiving hundreds of well wishes, support, sympathy, admiration, love from friends and strangers. And so since then, we've worked together. She's done interviews with local and national media and spoke at public events. She really wants to tell her story and hope to inspire others to take a stand against hate. So the picture you see here was at a Labor Day weekend rally in MacArthur Park, where she was a guest speaker, and I was handing out the posters that she's holding. Next, please. So shortly after or preceding the incident involving Hong Lee, there was an incident that happened shortly after midnight, August 17th, where 3 transgender women were viciously attacked by 3 men who were hurling transphobic slurs and throwing things at them and injuring them. In addition, there were bystanders actually recording and sort of encouraging that the violent behavior. One of the 3 was, her name is Eden Estrada, and she's sort of a prominent YouTube persona, Eden the Doll. We were working with the victims through LA versus Hate partner Bienestar, which possesses expertise in identifying and addressing emerging health issues faced by Latino and LGBTQ populations. So currently right now, we're still trying to connect with them to find them the appropriate support and services. Next, please. So this is a list of the challenges in battling hate that from my just short time working with SSG and working with 211 and our other coordinating entities. I don't think I have time to really go over them, but I can just briefly kind of describe. So fear of retaliation, in my discussions with the FBI, that's been sort of number one reason why victims do not report, for fear of the perpetrator still being in the neighborhood where they were attacked, either like near where their place of work is, or if it happened like nearby where they live. And of course, coronavirus and COVID-19. The one that I think I really thought would be interesting, because actually Sophie elaborated on this earlier about filling out a hate crime charge. So I wanted to preface first that I'm not an attorney, and my knowledge of hate crimes is more general than applicable. And it's really been learned through speaking to various legal professionals. So in the Torrance case, I'll just go back real quickly, where Ms. Hernandez was charged with one count of battery on one particular incident, but there was no charges on the June 10th assault on the two other people. According to one attorney who's worked on many of these issues, there is a high threshold because hate crime law is generally sort of regarded as an enhancement statute. So when a crime is motivated by bias towards people of particular race, religion, or other group, the punishment is going to be more severe than it would be if the crime were committed for some other reason. So there is this threshold called the Criminal Threat Penal Code 422 of the California Criminal Jury Instructions. And basically what this attorney was explaining to me was that as they were reviewing the evidence provided by the two victims, there's a threshold that has to be satisfied, one of five. And one in particular was if threats that were made by the suspect causes victims to be in sustained fear for their own safety or for the safety of their families, then they can proceed with a hate crime charge. But when they looked at the video of the audio recordings, there was this banter. The two victims were not really seemingly in fear of their lives, and therefore the investigators said that there was really a lack of evidence of being able to go forward. So next slide. So just want to say thank you very much again for allowing me to speak to this group today. And my contact information is there. Please, if you have any questions, and also go ahead and please visit our website. Thank you.
All right, we are going to hand it off to Breeze from Not in Our Town next.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be with you here today. The report from 211 is outstanding, as was Rick's. And I have to say, having worked with communities across the country for 25 years on this effort to prevent hate crimes and improve reporting and support victims of hate crimes, to see what 211 is able to do and all of the training that you're doing is so amazing. I think we dreamed about this for a long time, to see if government, county departments and communities could work together to improve hate crime reporting and response, those two things together, because they're so essential. And what you've been able to do, even in a short time, is just something that other communities need to know about. And I hope we can play some part in sharing that. This picture is from the original It's about the original film that we did in 1995 about people standing up to hate in Billings, Montana. Sounds like, why are you telling that story? It's old. Like, what's the deal with that? Well, I think there's some simple, really still vital messages from that story that continue to resonate. I'll just tell you, maybe, Marina, the next slide. The story is about, one more. The story is about white supremacists organizing in the largest city in Montana, which is quite small, and what happened when they did. At every turn, when there was an act of hate, people organized together to respond. When a Black church was targeted with skinheads in the back of the church to intimidate the congregation, members of other denominations were there to show up and support them, and the skinheads went away. When a Native American woman's house was plastered with racist graffiti, 30 members of the Painters Union were there to paint over the house, and 100 neighbors came to that neighborhood to watch and support them. The culminating event took place when a 6-year-old Jewish boy placed a menorah in his window for Hanukkah. A brick was thrown through the window and landed on his bed. And people said, it's becoming more violent. We have to up the ante. What can we do? What if we're all Jewish? So they started putting these paper menorahs in their windows and handing them out at, at churches, at dry cleaners, at the convenience store. And that year, 10,000 people put menorahs in their windows, and the white supremacist organizing stopped. I don't think anybody can pretend that hate went away forever in one town, but the community acting together, no matter who the target was a very powerful force. And that's why these many years later, let's go to the next slide, people have used the name Not in Our Town. After our film aired on PBS, people started identifying with the name Not in Our Town, and they started grabbing it and using it. And as filmmakers, we started following that story and have been following it with films and website blogs and mapping ever since. And through that period, we've been able to learn from effective practice around the country. What can people do to stand up to hate? What does that look like? And through that time, I have learned from so many people who've been targets of hate and have seen over and over again the trauma that is caused by hate. Obviously violent acts of hate, but it's the name calling. It are these attacks on people's identity that live for years and years and years, this unacknowledged trauma. So having the community recognize this, having a way to report it, make it part of something that we understand as a deep, deep harm in our community is so vital. So this is an example of one of the communities that has been practicing Not in Our Town for 25 years. I was just on the phone with one of their leaders who was really that community is facing some political divisions and increased hate incidents, and they are mobilizing their community very quickly. There was a Black family that was harassed in a neighborhood, and 300 people joined a car caravan to support them. So this is what long-term practice of anti-hate activism looks like. Let's go to the next slide. So this is one of the reasons I'm so heartened by what you're doing in LA County and what this group of people who are assembled, all the participants, all of you can do to to take this statistic and upend it. So every year the FBI takes the data from local law enforcement. Local law enforcement said, yeah, these are how many hate crimes we've reported this year. And there are whole jurisdictions, sometimes whole states that report 0. Okay, can you imagine that? 0. So at the same time, the Bureau of Justice Statistics estimates that there are a vast number more. So this is the last year we have comparative data, which is, I believe, 2015. Less than 6,000 are officially reported as hate crimes. And that year they estimated there were at least 200,000. And for many years, it's many, many more. So that gap there is so much pain and so much trauma that we need to get underneath it. And so I'm so appreciative of what you're doing and how you're able to do that. And I think linking the 211 resources, the LA versus hate practitioners, and the groups that are on the line today, what power is there with all of you to speak about this and these resources to people that you work with every day. So let's go to the next slide. So the communities that we work with really sort of drive what we do. We're a small group of people who are based here, and we don't have offices. We have our houses in New York and Los Angeles, and work with communities on the ground. And they told us a number of years ago, look, we're seeing the rise in anti-immigrant violence, and we need a new film about that. And we said, well, we can't invent it. It has to, like, where is a story about a community responding to anti-immigrant violence? It's one thing to document the problem. It's quite another thing to say, here's what we can do about it. And it wasn't until 2008 when Marcelo Lucero was killed on the streets of Patchogue, New York. And we saw 500 people show up at the train station where he had been killed, that we knew perhaps we had a story that we could follow. This is a clip of the trailer to Light in the Darkness. It's a film that aired on PBS and is available to all of you, but we wanted to give you this example to show what happens when we have unreported hate crimes.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go pull that up. Can y'all see this okay?
It was a Saturday night. My understanding was about 10 to 12, 5 to 12, when the call came into the ambulance company, that there was a man in the street that had been stabbed and was bleeding to death.
The defendants, each and every one of them, readily agreed to go looking for Mexicans to beat up. Conroy, the defendant who has been charged in this case with murder, took out a knife that he had in his pocket, ran towards Marcelo with his arms extended, and plunged the knife into Marcelo Lucero's chest. This is the knife that killed Marcelo Lucero.
The detective came over to my house and told me, listen, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your brother got killed last night. And the first thing, I take my cell phone and I call him. And there was ring the phone, but they don't answer. So I trying again. I say, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. So I call him second time, and he told me he's not gonna answer your phone because we have his phone. He's dead.
El sufrimiento es tan grande que ya no sé. No. Yo mismo pienso y no acabo y le pido a Dios que me conforme. Porque hay momentos que me llena de desesperación. A veces lloro en silencio. Porque la pena es tan grande, el perder a mi hijo. El corazón se hace pedazos de saber, de perder a un hombre lleno de vida como estaba él. Hombre joven con una vida por delante.
What happened at the spot that we stand right now, where Marcelo Lucero was killed, is a tragedy that will forever change this community. It will change how I look and how I do my job. And I have to be the one for this community that must show the leadership to how we're going to change and make this a safe place for people to be.
So what happened in Patchogue, that killing was utterly avoidable. There were dozens and dozens of people who were attacked before Marcelo Lucero was killed, and they tried to report it. Sometimes there was a language barrier. Sometimes the police didn't listen. They said it was just kids. There was inadequate mechanism for this to be stopped. And in the aftermath of this killing, the community had to grapple with this question. What kind of message were we sending to our kids that they could think that this was okay to do? And that's, the film follows this community in the next 2 years to look at that, to young people who knew what was going on, to the community who didn't, and trying to understand why, and people trying to repair that. I think the most important thing about this story is to remember what's at stake if we don't report, and how that is a responsibility of all of us to think about who is being harmed and what we can do together. So this film, like the other ones that you'll see from us, are available for you to screen with your community to open this discussion about why it's important to surface hate crimes. So let's talk about that. Please be in touch with us if you would like to set up a screening, even a virtual screening. This is something that you could do. Clearly, we were able to see the film, and you can do. I participated in breakout sessions with community groups who've been using the films. Let's go on to the next clip about Miet. Are we still in time? Do we have time to show the other pieces? So the majority of hate crimes are motivated by racial and ethnic bias. I think we've spoken about this. Most hate crimes are assault, and hate crimes are more likely to be violent than other crimes. Let's go on to the next one. So this is something that you've obviously talked about and thought about. There isn't just one victim. The person who is harmed feels it most intensely, but there is the family, there is the community, the spread of fear in a community across the board when someone is targeted by hate, because these are message crimes. The psychological stress, and then when police minimize the harm of hate, it could have negative consequences. We have been so heartened to work with police who want to work with communities on hate crime prevention. I think one of the most surprising things from the Billings story, not surprising, but for me in 1995 when I heard this, was the leadership of the police chief in that effort. And of course, there have been many more examples since then, but that story really sticks with me. He said, silence is acceptance. And this is not just a law enforcement problem, this is a community problem. It is something that we have to work on together. And I think we need our justice system to see this as something we work together on, and solving the problem together, that there is no one way. I think Rick pointed out some of the real problems in the challenges in working with the justice system. And in some of our films, you'll see how difficult it is for people to report crimes and go into court. But many of them, once they do, feel that their courage was worth it, that it was worth it to have the hate acknowledged and to have that harm be acknowledged in court. So let's go to an example of that, which is Mia. We're about to show you a clip from a transgender woman who was attacked at a transit station in San Francisco.
I grew up in a very small town in Texas. You know, it was horrible going to school, and I would get harassed every day, all the time. My school wasn't safe. My church community was telling me that I was going to hell and that there was no space for me.
Hate crimes are message-oriented crimes because they have a greater impact than the violence upon a particular individual. In Mia's case, she was at the 16th and Mission BART stop. So she was minding her business. Two young men came up to her, and they were very attracted to her. They started making very flirtatious comments. As they got closer, they realized that she was a birth male, and as she describes it, things got ugly.
I knew that he was harassing me because he could tell that I was trans. I started to get, scared at that point.
They immediately turned on her. They said things like, "That's a man, not a woman. We hate men who dress like women." And she tried to just ignore them, and so she started texting a friend. They grabbed the phone out of her hands, and as she stood up and begged for her phone back, one of them just punched her with full force in the face, knocking her down to the ground.
I remember laying on the ground in the fetal position after being attacked and really just feeling like, this is it. This is how a trans woman dies. I just felt an enormous sadness of feeling like the cultural weight and pain of this entire community, because you're not beating me up because you're bored. You're beating me up because you hate men in dresses, as you call it, and because I challenge your notions of what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a man.
So she stood up and she didn't just cry for help, but started giving directions to the folks in the neighborhood. She pointed them out and said, "That's the man who hit me. Somebody call the police." And we had a lot of witnesses who had rushed up in the meantime, who had heard all of these anti-transgender comments. I took it back to our office. DA George Gascon made the decision to refile all of the hate crime charges. And after we filed it, we were able to negotiate a plea where both of them admitted they did it for hate crime reasons.
I was glad to see that Victor Wong challenged that and said, no, it's important for us to call this what it is, hate. I think it's important for law enforcement to work with the trans community before there's a hate crime, because if you're working to build relationships after something traumatic happened, you're really starting on the wrong foot. And I think one of the things I like about the SFPD is that they do in-services on LGBT identities and also a specific one on trans identities. And that doesn't mean that there aren't problems in the police force here and trans people still get harassed by the police, but to me, that's an important first step in having training for the police, not having training for the police where you have trans people come in and say, these are our concerns, this is how I want to be treated, this is how I want to be respected, this is the pronouns that I go by. And I think that building relationships with the trans community before can really help. I've learned through this experience the importance of community, and that community is really what it's going to take to protect and keep everyone safe, because we have to have each other's backs, and that's so important. I just feel like I've also learned to like live each day to the fullest, and to really cherish what time I have, and to not regret anything. And to me, that's about telling my truth and being honest and being out there and proud, and not trying to be afraid and be shameful of who I am, because I've done that for too long and I'm sick of it.
So we do these films and share these stories, both to try to give the community a sense of why it's important to pay attention to the drama, whether you're gender nonconforming or not. No matter what, we need to pay attention to what happened to Mia, and also to give courage to people to say it is worth it to stand up. It's really, really hard. Obviously, the judge dismissed the hate crime charges, but Mia, and with support from Victor Wong, who was the hate crimes prosecutor, stood up and stood firmly, as did the district attorney. So I know I'm running out of time, but I think you are answering this question about addressing the gap. How can we make it easier for people to report hate crimes? What programs or relationships with the community are helping your agency reach out to those who are harmed, who maybe are not able to come forward yet and share that with all of us? So maybe could we just, I want to just give people the links to our, so here's how you can find out more about Not in Our Town, access our films, learn more about it. We have programs for young people. We have Anti-Bullying Month coming up in October. There's a video a day for October for Anti-Bullying Month. And please be in touch if there's any resources you need from us about how to stand up and share these short films with victims. It's opening that conversation that may give people that ounce of, of push to feel that it's worth it to come forward.
And Patrice, if I might add, your website is full of resources, not just for individuals, but for communities. There's how to get involved, how to start groups. For schools, you have lesson plans, you have videos, you have all kinds of resources that people can use. I think that anyone who is interested in wanting to start a campaign either on their campus or in their community can easily get everything that they need here. But I also encourage folks to reach out to this group because I think together we can be a lot stronger and we can support local efforts as well. We have the 211 website that has a lot of resource information. Our anti-hate page will also take you to other places, including the LA versus Hate website, which has these nice little backgrounds that you see us using, plus a lot of other tools, a media kit, ways that you can get involved. And, we encourage folks to get active and not to wait for someone to step out and lead, but to really initiate that leadership yourselves. If you see it, get active.
I just want to add one more thing. We created right after 2017 with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, we created these Stop Hate Action Kits. So these are things you can pull up on your phone. And if for example, law enforcement can pull up these links on their phone. There's a section for law enforcement about kinds of questions to ask to see if this is a hate crime. There are Stop Hate Action Kits for schools that say, Okay, I'm an administrator. Some hate incident has happened at school. What do I do? I'm an educator. What do I do? I'm a parent. What do I do? Examples for communities and for campus groups.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much, everyone. I do believe that we do have some time for some questions. If anyone does have any questions regarding any of the information that got brought up during our slides from any of our presenters, please do take the time now to use the chat box or the Q&A section at the bottom bar to ask away.
If there are no questions, I do want to also let people know that the entire program is working towards developing an online academy with information that can be used for addressing things like the social justice issues, racism. This is going to be part of the 211LA hate website or hate reporting website. So, keep coming often to see the new material that's going to be added. Also, the LA versus Hate website continues to add new content. So I encourage you all to visit these sites and to, stay posted on any new things that are coming up. There's a lot of work being done in the county by the Board of Supervisors to address violence prevention. There's a lot of work to address racism directly and to eliminate racism in LA County, and reporting is, just one of the things that you can do. So there's a lot of activity in the county. So we encourage you to definitely get involved, reach out to us. Let us know if you're doing events or activities that you would like us to also bring to the attention of others. We're happy to share any invitations to webinars or events, online events that people can participate in. So please look at us or consider us as your team, and reach out to us if we can help you. The idea really is to start a wildfire that doesn't burn down homes. And so please join us as we engage in this very important work. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.